Donald Trump's dark past is surfacing at the worst time possible for him right now, right before Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing is set to take place tomorrow in the United States Senate. MeidasTouch host Katie Phang and Daily Beans / MeidasTouch host Allison Gill, who hosts The Breakdown on MeidasTouch, have both helped expose Donald Trump's dark past. In addition, a federal judge in the Southern District of Florida, Judge Kathleen Williams, issued a scathing order regarding Todd Blanche, and Todd Blanche also putting a gigantic bullseye on Donald Trump's sick and dark past of tax evasion, which Blanche is going to be asked about as well. And a referral has been made to the state bar already by Judge Kathleen Williams in New York, where Todd Blanche is a member of the bar. Let's go through what's going on. And hat tip to these MeidasTouch hosts, Katie Phang and Allison Gill, for leading the way. Not just talking the talk, which is a lot, but also walking the walk. So yesterday, Katie Phang, who has been fighting for the release of the Epstein files under the Epstein Transparency Act, and won a massive victory where the Trump regime had to turn over the Epstein files, but they've been obstructing and refusing to turn it over. Katie Phang is undeterred, and she filed something called a motion to enforce the prior order that ordered Todd Blanche turn over the Epstein files. And Katie Phang also focused on the files that relate to Donald Trump and the privilege or redaction log, where we believe there are hundreds and thousands and potentially tens of thousands of the most damaging documents regarding Donald Trump. Todd Blanche is going to be asked about that. This filing was just made by Katie Phang about Donald Trump's dark past. Let's go through what she just put before the district court. But also, I want to mention what Allison Gill did, because she was able to expose through her FOIA requests that the FBI, Kash Patel, Todd Blanche, and others, Todd Blanche is acting AG, that they made a training video for agents how to basically destroy evidence regarding Donald Trump in the Epstein files, how to redact it, how to remove it, how to hide the Trump documents. And Allison Gill was able to find that that's one of the documents and videos that are currently being withheld. And that relates to Katie Phang's lawsuit, who wants a redaction and privilege log to see the documents that are being withheld. Do you see how both of these MeidasTouch hosts right there are in kind of conjunction working to release these files on Donald Trump's sick and disgusting dark past that he's covering up? Let's go take a look at the filing by Katie Phang before Judge Emmett Sullivan. This is her motion to enforce, and she talks about how when Todd Blanche refused to respond to the court's order to produce the Epstein files under the Epstein Transparency Act, notably, in his response, Attorney General Blanche makes clear, acting AG Blanche makes clear that whatever the federal statute requires him to do, he will not comply. For example, he refuses to review foreign language documents. He refuses to produce an explanation for the redactions, and he refuses to produce a redaction log. He refuses to produce certain documents because he claims that the co-conspirators of Epstein are actually the victims. And so they've asked that their names not be revealed, because even though they're the co-conspirators, they're saying, actually, we're the real victims. So they are protecting the co-conspirators of Epstein. And Katie Phang says, Judge, you need to fine Todd Blanche right away, a significant monetary amount, but grab these documents yourself, Judge, and do what's called an in-camera review. In-camera, I-N-C-M-E-R-A. And you can look at it first, Judge, and then once you have it, then you release it yourself. Do an in-camera review. So Katie Phang goes through all these categories that Todd Blanche is covering up for Donald Trump, like foreign language documents, documents the privilege log or the redaction log. And Katie Fang explains, look, Todd Blanche claims that all he had to do was provide a summary of the documents being withheld. And that's what he did to Congress. No, that's not what the Epstein Transparency Act says. It says a log regarding all redactions. And then Katie Fang says, you also can't trust Todd Blanche when he says that the reason he's withholding all of these other documents is because he's protecting the victims who are the co-conspirators, actually, that the co-conspirators are the victims. And Katie Fang says, this guy lies about everything. He's covering up for Donald Trump. Judge, let's get our hands on these documents. You can review it yourself and see if Todd Blanche is lying. So that's Katie Fang's filing. Then we go to Allison Gill's filing. And here's what she provided to the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform and the Senate Committee on the Judiciary. And that's where Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing is going to be taking place tomorrow. To whom it may concern, my name is Allison Gill, and I'm an independent journalist, podcaster, and owner of MSW Media. Last summer, multiple sources from the FBI and DOJ who were involved in last spring's review and redaction of the Epstein files reached out to me. Among other revelations, multiple sources described training videos instructing analysts how to find, log, and redact Donald Trump's name from the files. The videos also instructed the analysts to record mentions of Trump's name on a master spreadsheet. According to the sources, the videos existed both on an unclassified SharePoint site embedded in a PowerPoint deck and something called BewTube. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request for these videos, which was ignored. So national security counselors filed a lawsuit on my behalf last year. This week, we got a response from the FBI confirming the existence of these videos. While the FBI still refuses to hand them over, citing FOIA exemptions, they are not exempt under the EFTA. We will continue to litigate, but this acknowledgement of their existence is a stunning admission. This is why I'm reaching out ahead of the Blanche confirmation hearings this week. I have attached a copy of the FBI's letter, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And then here's the FBI's letter, which says the FBI completed the search for records subject to FOIA that are responsive to your request, consisting of these videos. They've been reviewed under FOIA, Title V, and they're being withheld in its entirety by FBI pursuant to exemptions B5, B6, B7 sub C, B7 E sub E. In other words, they're admitting these videos, these training videos exist, but they are withholding it. And then Jason Leopold was able to identify it in his FOIA request what they are. Epstein Transparency Project PowerPoint 3/21/2025, FBI DOJ name employees, tracking. That's where it's at right there. Here's how Allison Gill describes it. Let's play this clip right here.
Now, the FBI has admitted that it has in its possession training videos instructing analysts at the FBI on how to redact the Epstein files. They have admitted that they have them. Now, you'll recall multiple anonymous sources who participated in reviewing the Epstein files at the FBI and DOJ confided in me late last summer that in addition to being locked in the building, sometimes for 24 or 48-hour shifts, forced to review hundreds of thousands of pages of Epstein files and videos and photos so that they could log and redact certain information, including Trump's name. And they confided in me that there existed an unclassified SharePoint site where a PowerPoint deck lived, and that PowerPoint deck had training videos embedded in it, instructing them on how to find and log and mark Trump's name and other information for redaction. Training videos, mostly because the IMD, the Information Management Division at the FBI, generally doesn't redact for publication. It's usually a place called RIDS with the FBI, which is a much smaller division. And so in order to get more people to be able to do this, they paid millions of dollars in overtime over 5 days. And they locked the entire Information Management Division in the building, wouldn't let them leave. And that's where we get the number of at least 1,000 people reviewing the Epstein files, because IMD wasn't really trained or certified on how to redact things for publication. So they had to create, the FBI had to create these training videos. And apparently, some of them specifically told them how to use an Excel spreadsheet to log Trump's name, the page number, and the document. Now, at this time, the existence of the training videos was not known to the public. So I held on to that information for literally minutes so my lawyer could file a Freedom of Information Act request, because these videos shouldn't be exempt under the Freedom of Information Act. And when the FBI didn't respond, my lawyer filed a lawsuit on behalf of my media company, MSW Media, because we wanted to get those videos from the FBI. Our FOIA request said, quote, all videos stored on SharePoint on the unclassified side or SharePoint on YouTube on the classified side, which were created or used to train FBI personnel in how to review records about Jeffrey Epstein. Then late last year, Jason Leopold received dozens of pages of internal FBI emails pursuant to one of his Freedom of Information Act requests. And one of them, as you can see here, included a PowerPoint deck entitled The Epstein Transparency Project. I thought when I saw that for sure, that's the PowerPoint my sources described to me earlier that year. Now, at first, the FBI came back and said, I'm not a real media figure, so I can't make this FOIA request regarding fees, which my lawyer promptly appealed. And as you can see in this letter, we won our appeal. It says, the FBI has informed this office that it has changed your client's fee category to representative of the news media. Accordingly, as there is no longer any action to consider, I'm closing your appeal file in this office. So yay, I'm a real media figure. Well, this week, we received a response to our Freedom of Information Act request for the videos. And we thought for sure, I was like, they're going to deny they exist because they didn't release them in any of their productions of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. But they didn't deny their existence. They told us they do, in fact, have them, and that we think they're wrongfully withholding them under FOIA exemptions. So we have them, but we're not giving them to you.
Now I want to bring in Senator Adam Schiff to give us a preview of what we can expect at tomorrow's confirmation hearing of Todd Blanche. I guess my first question, Senator, is how is this even happening with the conflicts of interest, with what seems to be obvious illegality, with all of the horrors that we've seen Blanche engage in, the cover-up of the Epstein files, just in plain view? How is this even happening right now where this is potentially going to go through when we've never seen this level of lawlessness anywhere close in American history?
Well, you're absolutely right. It is astounding that this is even possible. This is even feasible to put forward a nominee with this kind of a terrible track record. But it shows what degree the Republicans remain in the thrall of Donald Trump, unwilling to confront him. Even people that he defeated took on in their own primaries. We'll see. Maybe they'll surprise me. I hope they will. But considering Blanche's track record, you would think that this would be beyond contemplation. Both the fact that courts have found the Justice Department under his leadership to be in violation of the law by withholding the publication of Epstein files, millions of them potentially. The gross degree to which he has weaponized the department, his public statements about boasting about that, his boasting to other audiences about how they've given pardons and commutations to everyone who beat police officers and gouged them and bear sprayed them on January 6th. There are so many disqualifying factors, but nonetheless, if you were betting, you would bet that he gets confirmed.
How do you approach this knowing that tomorrow? Because there's still a limited amount of time. I mean, as I was saying on one of the episodes over this weekend, knowing the depositions that I used to take when I was a litigator, I would need about, 20 hours, I think, to fully get through kind of everything. You have a much shorter time than that. Just remind the viewers how much time you're going to have to question, and how do you deal with all of these issues?
It's anticipated, I think, at this point that each of us will have 10 minutes to ask questions. Now, I'm the most junior member of the Judiciary Committee because I'm the most recent new addition to that committee. I was put on the committee just about a year and a half ago. And that can be a disadvantage because everybody has the chance to ask the questions you want to ask first. But I actually find it quite advantageous in a different respect. And that is, I pay close, very assiduous attention not just to the questions the members ask, but to the answers and to the evasions. And so sometimes it can be an advantage in going last. I get to hear how the witness has responded or refused to respond. Often when a witness is vague, sometimes the person asking the question doesn't pick up on it, and I can drill down on it. So I kind of view myself as doing cleanup and pressing those fault questions that didn't get asked that I think really need to be asked. That's how I have approached these hearings in the past. When Pam Bondi testified, for example, and you'll remember she just simply insulted everyone on the committee rather than answer the questions, I began with a litany of all the questions she wouldn't answer. You wouldn't answer what happened to the $50,000 that Tom Homan received in a paper bag. You wouldn't answer this. You wouldn't answer that. You wouldn't answer this. And it was a good way of highlighting all of her evasions and then putting her on the spot to really give us some answers.
Yeah, I mean, given all that Todd Blanche has been engaged in, I'm sure it's shocking for our audience to learn that the rules that are being set up by MAGAs are already trying to set the rules so that Blanche basically can't even be asked questions over 10 minutes when it's like, no matter what your view is, and I hope if you care about law and order, you shouldn't be siding with somebody like Blanche, but to at least be able to flesh out the questions and understand what's happening here, given how important it is. What do you think are the most important issues, though? I mean, you hinted at some before. What do you think are the most flagrant violations? Just a reminder to our audience, you are a former, top federal prosecutor before getting involved in Congress and now as United States Senator. So what do you make of it all?
Well, you're right. I mean, you could have an entire hearing just focused on the evasions, the cover-up, the re-victimization of victims of Epstein. That would be more than enough for an entire hearing, but that's just going to be one topic when he comes to testify. I'm particularly interested in how he has abused the department to go after the president's enemies, the most flagrant of which was trying to prosecute, seeking an indictment of several of my colleagues over a video they made that states the plain fact that if you're in the military, you can disobey an unlawful unconstitutional order. Indeed, you have a duty to. That's simply the law. And for stating the law, they tried to make an example and indict them. You've got the Comey Seashells case. You've got repeated cases being thrown out by grand juries, something very, very rare because they're so frivolous. And this coming from an attorney general under the supervision of an attorney general who promised during one of his hearings that there wouldn't be a whiff of any kind of political prosecution. So how does he explain a Seashells case in light of that promise? So these are some of the things I think that are deeply important. But there's so much, all of the antitrust settlements, the making cases go away, the basically pay to play. If you hire Pam Bondi's brother or you make a payment to the president's campaign committee, then you can get a pardon or you can make cases go away. There are pardons for sale, basically. So much grist for the mill.
Right. I mean, even on Monday, there was the order by Judge Williams, Kathleen Williams in the Southern District of Florida, making very serious findings, not just against Donald Trump's personal lawyer, but against the DOJ for looting the Treasury is basically what the judge said in a $10 billion collusive fabricated lawsuit that Trump filed and that Todd Blanche was ready, willing, and able, to put his name on. I mean, that's on just that order alone on Monday from a federal judge should be disqualifying. And that's on Monday. But that's kind of what happens before 10 a.m. And I want to talk to you, like, how do you, this Trump regime is a weapon of mass destruction. There's so much being thrown everybody's way. There is kind of sadly, a numbness that seems to be like, okay, that's just Trump. He's an authoritarian. He's a bad guy. And so what? And it shouldn't be that way. And it's like, how do you deal with that? How do you focus people on this ain't normal? Like this isn't a normal discussion. Like this is, and I think J.D. Vance said it in his interview. He goes, Watergate, that wouldn't even be a story today. In about 6 hours, that would leave the news cycle. It was a stunning admission. He's probably right because Trump does one Watergate, in my opinion, before noon almost every day.
It really was striking. I'm glad you brought up that particular statement by J.D. Vance, because what he is saying to the American people is, we have made corruption so routine. We've made it so typical, so overwhelming, so ever present, that if the president were to break into the Democratic headquarters and bug the Democratic headquarters, pay hush money to cover it up, if he were to use the CIA to interfere in an FBI investigation of that and lie to the American people about it, it would be just a few hours story. That's how successfully corrupt we've made our administration and how numb we made the country to it. A stunning admission. In terms of Blanche, again, getting back to the first point you made about how is this even happening that we're contemplating a confirmation of this guy, the judge in that decision on Monday referred Blanche basically to the Bar Association in New York because of his conduct. The judge in that opinion pointed out that when Blanche testified that, well, they didn't bring this bogus settlement before a court because there was basically no court of jurisdiction, the judge there said, we were here. We could have reviewed that. That was disingenuous at best and maybe dishonest at worst. How is it possible that after being referred to a bar association for potential discipline on Monday, we're contemplating this guy for Attorney General on Wednesday?
I want to talk about just one quick thing before we go that's related but not fully about Blanche. Republicans are talking about Reconciliation 3.0, where they want to spend all of this, additional money kind of on an emergency, urgent basis. Now, Donald Trump's been out there saying that he's brought in $19.2 trillion over and over again, and he keeps on saying it. While I just saw the debt rise in the past year about $3.2 trillion, and it's just this thing that he just goes out there and says a number, 19.2 trillion, and he says it over and over again, 19.2 trillion. And the whole thing is a fabricated number. It reminds me of all of the cases against Donald Trump when he was not in office for inflating and deflating. And he comes up with this number. But as you're being asked right now for, hundreds of billions of dollars more from taxpayers now for this catastrophic war in Iran, my response, this guy's out there saying he's got $19.2 trillion. What, to me, the threshold issue is show me where that money is, before you even have to answer anything else. It's just how are we even in this twilight zone right now? But that 19.2 trillion always gets me because it's repeated and regurgitated like it's a real number.
He does this all the time. He just pulls things out of his backside that we've made more money than all these investments and we've got all this money from the terrorists, blah, blah, blah. And it's all made up numbers. And you're right. We could say, okay, you want this extra money for something else? Why don't we use that made up money of yours? It was like all the money that Mexico spent to build a wall, which never somehow materialized. It is all just a fiction. And I would say this before we get to Reconciliation 3.0, look at what Reconciliation 2.0 did in giving tens of billions of dollars more to ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. What's the result of that when they already had enough money for a major army? And the result is within the last 2 weeks, 2 more people shot and killed in their vehicles, 2 more victims of this out of control immigration agenda. So what is 3.0 going to bring when 2.0 is just bringing more death and chaos in our streets? Certainly nothing good for the country.
What it reminds me of, and I won't take much more of your time, but, you used to prosecute these fraud cases, right? And remember how I did a case, I did the MedCap case in California that you probably remember on the civil side, when they would create special purpose vehicles 1, 2, and 3. And when they would rob Peter to pay Paul in 1, they'd go to 2, then they'd go to 3. And to me, Reconciliation 3 looks like the Ponzi scheme, special purpose vehicle 3 that goes and raids the taxpayers when they run out of money for 2, and that it just follows the pattern so much that I go, that's what they're doing. It's the Ponzi scheme approach to our government. I'll give you the final word.
Well, I would just mention, we just put out a report within the last week about all the money, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that Trump is spending on banners of Trump's face on federal buildings. So imagine this. People are struggling right now. They're working harder than ever. They're trying to pay their rent or their mortgage, trying to pay their health bills or their home insurance bills with climate change. And what is the president focused on? spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on his own mug, on banners to drape buildings with, like Stalin used to, on his reflecting pool, on his ballroom, on anything but the problems of the American people. And now they want to come before Congress and ask for billions and billions more for a war that Congress never approved, that the American people don't support, with a president now claiming he wants to charge tariffs, when a week ago, 2 weeks ago, he and everybody else in the administration was saying no nation is allowed to charge, not tariffs, but tolls to go through the Strait of Hormuz. Now they're saying we should charge tolls. They have no strategy. And the problem is it's the American people that are paying for this. American troops with their lives, American taxpayers with their taxes, Americans going to the gas station. We're just seeing all the costs of this corrupt administration. I'll give you one final source for the president if he needs to find more money. How about the $2.2 billion that he has corruptly absconded with during the course of the presidency? That could buy a lot of new hospitals, pay for a lot of new hospitals. Why don't we use that money?
Senator, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.